The fourth name in the Chronicles took us to the Seto Inland Sea in Japan, to a small island that cut its own ferry line and survived the entire war alone. We came to hear how from the woman who rang the bell. It is called Oku-shima, a fishing island, a few hundred people, 2 hours by ferry from a mainland that is close enough to see on a clear day, and, for 2 years, might as well have been on the moon. Hana Morikawa is 88. She was an ama, a free diver, going down for shellfish on a single breath in the cold, the old way. She dove these waters for 60 years. The war, she said, taught the whole island to hold its breath the way a diver does. She talked to us on the rocks where she has entered the water for 70 years, because she does not trust a story told indoors. Indoors, she said, you can forget the sea is there, and this is a story about never forgetting the sea is there. Before the war, it was a good island and a hard one. The diving, the fishing, the terraces. The young people left for the cities, and the island grew old. She thought that was the tragedy of her life. She did not yet know how lucky an emptying island would be. When the sickness reached the port cities, the old people gathered at the shrine, held a meeting, and voted, no more ferries. Not to the island, not from it. The young ones argued. But on an island, the old people carry the vote. The island closed its one door. Then they did the hard thing. They sank their own ferry in the mouth of the harbor on purpose. A boat that can sail is a boat that can be begged for or stolen. A boat that cannot sail asks no one to be brave. It was the hardest kindness the island ever did. Then they simply lived, the way the island had lived for 1,000 years before there was a ferry at all. Sweet potato on the terraces, fish from the boats, rainwater in the old wells. The emptiness she had mourned meant fewer mouths and more stores. The tragedy had become the salvation. The dead came anyway, not by boat. The island had made sure of that. They came the way she knew the sea best, from below. They walked in along the seabed, from the drowned mainland across 2 hours of open water. On the bottom, in the dark. It took them weeks, but they came. The first one climbed out of the surf at low tide on a grey morning, and the fishermen saw it and did not understand. She understood. The sea, she said, gives everything back. Driftwood, drowned sailors. It was only giving back the dead on the tide, in its own time. She stood on the headland and watched and counted and understood the danger the way she understood the reef. They came at low tide, they followed sound, and they climbed out wherever the shore was gentle. So the island had to become a place with no gentle shore. The temple bell. The dead follow sound, and the loudest sound on the island was the bronze bell that had called the fleet home for 400 years. She went to the tower on the far headland, above the cliffs, where the shore is not gentle at all, and she rang it. The headland ends in a cliff, 100 feet, straight down into deep water. She rang the bell, and they came, and they walked off the edge, because a thing that follows sound does not stop at an edge. Every dusk, for 2 years, she rang the dead home over the cliff, into the sea that had brought them. She did it herself. The young men offered. She said no. A diver knows how to spend a breath and how to stand at an edge over deep water without her nerve going. So the oldest diver on the island became its whole defense, alone at dusk with a 400-year-old bell. The bell drew most of them. The nets caught the rest, strung across the coves, weighted to the seabed. What the nets held, the divers dealt with, under water, in the dark, on a single breath. She said only that the sea is very cold at night, and that a diver does not open her mouth under water. Not for anything, the whole cooperative dove. The ama had always worked in a line, watching each other's breath, and now they watched each other's backs. 60 years of diving together, she said, and the one skill we had been practicing all along was keeping each other alive in cold black water. Winter helped, even here. In the deep cold, the ones still walking the seabed slowed and sank, and the tide brought fewer each day. She did not ring the bell from January to March. The silence of those months was the loudest silence of her life. The island lost 3 people over the 2 years. She keeps a shrine for them on the headland, made of stones from the beach, a child's shoe, 2 names on wood. She will not say whether she knew them from before. Some things, she said, a diver keeps underwater. The island did not fall apart. It was already old, already used to hard years, already used to counting on each other and no one else. When the big winter came, the island did what it always did. It pulled in and shared out and waited and rang the bell. She taught the children to dive during the war, more than ever, because the sea was the island's larder and its wall both. And she taught them the diver's first rule, which turned out to be the war's rule too. Know how deep the water is. Fear the shallows. Trust the deep. When the mainland was being cleared, a navy boat came out at last. The islanders met it at the sunken ferry and would not let it pass until every sailor showed his arms. A door you close yourself, she said. You open yourself. When you are ready. Not before. It took a month for the island to trust the world again. And then they raised their own ferry, themselves, from the mouth of their own harbor. That mattered, she said. The world did not open the island. The island opened the island. On its terms, in its time, the way the sea does everything. She dives again every day the weather allows. We asked whether it troubled her, going back into the water that had brought the dead. The sea gave the dead back because the sea gives everything back. I hold no grudge against the sea, she said, and the sea holds none against me. That is the whole arrangement. She still rings the bell at dusk, not to turn anyone. She rings it for the 3 the sea kept, and for the ones the bell sent home over the cliff. A bell, she said, is how an island tells the sea it is still holding its breath, and still knows exactly when to let it out. The sound carries a long way over water at dusk, all the way to the mainland on a still evening. She likes to think that during the war, people over there sometimes heard a bell across the water and thought only, someone is still alive out there. She rang it loud in case it helped them. The island came out of the war more itself than it went in. The young people came back, some of them, because the island had proven it could keep them alive when the cities could not. There are more divers now than before the war. The island had kept its people alive. That is the whole way a place gets loved. She watches the young divers most mornings from the rocks, the line of them going down together, coming up together, watching each other's breath. She taught half of them. She will not say she is proud. She says only that the line is unbroken, which is more than most places can say after a war like that. She tends the shrine every week, fresh flowers from the terraces. The child's shoe she will not move and will not explain. We asked, only once, who the 3 were. She said, the sea gave everyone back but 3. Then she rang the bell, 1 stroke, and we understood that the answer was the bell. They teach the war in the island school, though they call it the closed years. The children learn the tides, which shore is gentle and which is cruel, which cove had the net and which had the bell. And at the center of the lesson, always, sound is a wall, if you know how to swing it. She teaches the children to ring the bell, just to know its weight, to feel how far the sound goes. Someday, one of them may need to know that a following thing can be turned with a loud enough sound. She hopes they never need it. She teaches them anyway. We teach the young the things we pray they never use. Visitors come now for the diving, for the story of the island that closed its own door. They ask her to ring the bell for a photograph. She refuses. The bell turned the dead over a cliff for 2 years. It has earned the right to be rung only when it means something. Never for cameras. We asked whether she thought of herself as a hero. She looked at the sea for a while. A diver is not a hero. A diver is only someone who knows exactly how long she can hold her breath and does not panic and comes up in time. That is not heroism. That is lung capacity and nerve. Everything the island did, it did the way a diver does. Hold the breath. Know the depth. Do not panic. Come up in time. The island held its breath for 2 years and came up, and 3 did not, the way 3 do not, sometimes. You ring the bell for them, and you go back down, because the living still have to eat. She rang it for us, once, at the end, at dusk, the proper time, 1 stroke, and the sound went out over the water, huge and low and long, the way it must have gone out every dusk for 2 years. We did not speak, The sound did all the speaking there was. The 3 lines reached even here, on the radio in the first year. If you can fight, fight. If you cannot fight, climb. If you cannot climb, float. True, she thought, and incomplete. An island has a 4th thing, ring. Make a sound the following thing cannot help but follow, and lead it to the edge. It is the same rule, she said. It is always the same rule. Know where the deep water is. Everything the war taught anyone was only that. The doctor's flood, the ferryman's channel, the coach's winter, all of it was people finding the deep water of their own country. Hers was the sea itself and the bell. She climbs the path at dusk. She doesn't miss a day. She will ring it until she cannot climb the path, and then she will teach a child to climb it, and the bell will ring on that headland long after she is gone. 1 stroke for the ones the sea kept, forever. We asked whether she was afraid of anything now. Only the shallows, she said. The deep is honest. It is the shallows that fool you. 3 feet of calm water, and a careless step, and you are gone. Fear the shallows and trust the deep. That is my whole wisdom after 88 years and 1 war. In the morning, the divers go down in a line, on a single breath, into water that gives everything back, and the old woman watches from her rocks, and the bell is quiet, because the morning is safe now. That safety was bought by 2 years of dusks. We left on the ferry, the island sank and raised again, and the last thing we could see was the bell tower, small and black against the pale sky waiting for dusk. Fear the shallows, trust the deep, and if you cannot float, ring and lead them to the edge. This has been the Wanderers Chronicles. If you can fight, fight.